In property, there are so many ways to make money. However, it's just as easy to lose money, especially if you're brand new and you haven't quite got the experience yet. In this video, I want to give you 6 ways for you to be careful just to ensure that you don't lose money. Hey, if you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I share with you my 15 years plus property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing journey. When it comes to losing money in property, this is just so easy because we're not talking about £20,000 or £30,000. Often we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds of investments because property is not cheap to get into. So the amount of money we're talking about is quite significant amounts. So when we start talking about losses and losing money, that can grow quite quickly as well if you're not careful. And as I said here, I want to give you 6 key things to be mindful of. The first one is to ensure you don't become a motivated buyer. So what's a motivated buyer? You may have heard of motivated sellers. A motivated buyer is someone just so keen to buy property. And this often you see with people that are brand new, that are starting out in property. What happens is they start looking at what's possible, they start looking at deals, but they don't necessarily have enough experience to analyze them carefully, and they rush into doing deals. Or they're just so desperate to do a deal and they make those round pegs fit into square holes. Or is it square pegs fit into round holes? The second way people lose money through property is by speculating. Rather than having a clear strategy, what people do is they rely on hope. And I hate to break the news to you, but hope is not a strategy. What many people were doing when I started getting involved in property about 15 years ago is they would buy property that was off plan. That means essentially they get a drawing and they say, hey, that one's yours. It's going to be on the 27th floor when it's eventually built. Right now it's just fresh air. So what they would do is commit to buying that. Let's say it's £100,000 with the hope, i.e. they were speculating that over time, by the time it's being built, let's say it takes 1.5 years, 2 years, it may even be worth £120,000. So when it's being built, they've made £20,000 because they bought it off a drawing before it was actually built. But this is speculating, it's not strategy, it's not technique, because there are many factors outside of your control. That means that you don't know what's going to happen to that market. There's no certainty, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. If you want to force up the value of a property, you would either buy property and then add value to it to improve it, renovate it, add rooms to it, or for example, you might change its use from one category to another. These are the ways to increase value because you have a clear plan. Without those, you are essentially just guessing and speculating with a view of just hoping that the price will go up. The third way that people lose money is by crystallizing a loss. So earlier on I was talking about pre-credit crunch time where values had really shot up quite significantly. Then soon after that there was a crash, 2008, around that sort of time, when values dropped by about 25%, really depending on where you are in the country. So let's say you had £100,000 property and the value dropped by about 25%. It would mean that the property is now worth £75,000. At that point you have a paper loss. You might have purchased something at 100,000 and now it's worth 75,000. However, if you were to actually sell that property, which is what some people started doing, they started panicking and they started selling property, then that paper loss becomes a real loss, and that's where you crystallize a loss. And if you are really sat through that and ride the wave, what you would have seen is those that actually sat tight, the market recovered and the prices went back up again. And now, if you look at where the prices are now compared to where they were 2008 at the lowest point of the market, they are massively different. And those people may have had a paper loss at that time, but it didn't become a reality. Before I talk about the fourth way that people lose money through property, make sure you watch all the way to the end because number 6 is a real juicy one. However, number 4 is one of my favorites because most projects, especially when you're starting out, they cost more and they take longer. Why is that the case? That's because you don't necessarily have the experience to be able to cost things properly in terms of how much work is going to be involved and how long things are going to take. And often they're guesstimates that we rely on. So what that means when they start the project, or there may be unforeseens involved in that project as well. So often the ones where you're doing less work, in my experience, are more difficult to cost. Because for example, let's say you're just going to redecorate and maybe plaster a couple of walls in the property. When you start doing that work, you find that there's problems there. You start stripping that plaster work out and then you find there's more work that needs to be done. You might find wood that's got rot on it as well. And all these things mean that your costs start spiraling out of control. So at the beginning, it's really important that you're using experienced people that are helping you cost those jobs properly. Hey, if you're enjoying this content, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of great videos on the channel. There's nearly 300 videos now actually on the channel for you to enjoy. So let's jump into number 5. The fifth way that most people tend to lose money when it comes to investing in property is overdeveloping a property. What do I mean by overdeveloping a property? That means when you look at a property, you think, wow, I can put an extension on the back of this, I can convert the loft, I can put a swimming pool in the garden, I can put gold taps in there. And yes, all these things are possible. However, you're not going to make money by doing these things. And in fact, sometimes you might even decrease the value of property, especially if you put a swimming pool in the back, because hey, let's face it, who wants a swimming pool in December in their garden, right? It does not make sense. So by not being accurate in terms of what the property is going to be worth at the end, what the true GTV is, and what the ceiling price of that area is, you can end up spending too much money doing things that are not really adding value, improving the property. Now, especially if you're in some of the lower price properties that you're looking at, say, let's say you're buying something for 70, 80, 100,000 pounds, it doesn't make sense spending 40, 50,000 pounds on it if the street value there maybe is only 110 or 120,000 pounds. So when you overdevelop, it's a great way to lose money. Number 6 and the final one, and this one is really important because hey, I've lost money doing this as well, especially when I get started. Never mind get started, this happened recently as well last year, is when you don't document things properly, especially when you're working with builders and you don't have that clarity, you can lose money. So last year on one of our projects, we put somebody on a job that we'd worked with before. We thought, hey, there should be no problems with this and they're going to crack on with it. And as we started getting through the job, we realized their interpretation of good quality wasn't quite our interpretation. The reality is what happened there, that they spread themselves thin, they were doing too many jobs, and they started doing a shoddy job on our particular property. And if you want to watch that video, we'll link that up here for you so you can watch that. But what happened in that case is really because we hadn't had good, clear contracts, and this is really important when you're starting out and you're employing that builder for the first time. They've got clear documentation and a clear explanation of your expectation, your requirements, exactly down to what type of things you want, what finish you want, and then that way there's going to be no misunderstanding. So for example, if you employ a builder to say, hey, can you fit a new kitchen out for me over there, and the builder says £10,000, and another builder you speak to and that one says £9,000, and you think, great, we'll go with the cheaper one, that one said 9,000. The one that says 9,000 might have interpreted your requirement as strip out the kitchen units, put new kitchen units in, and hey, job done. The one that quoted you more might have actually thought, well, what you meant was strip out the old kitchen, you're going to refit a kitchen, but actually you're going to tile it as well, the floor, you're going to tile the walls, you're going to do some electrical work, you're going to do some plumbing work as well, you're going to redecorate it, and actually the amount of work is completely different, so we're not comparing the same thing. So it's really important by having good, clear communication and documenting things well that you don't lose money in this way. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, then you are really going to enjoy this video that I've got lined up over here for you. Now in this video, I show you how you make money from property, especially when you're starting out, as opposed to losing money, which is what all this video was about. But just before we go and watch that video, make sure you click on my face down here to subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you on this video up here.